Let's continue exploring Apache now. We've breezed over this directory block that you see here commented out. This block pertains to the user directory feature, which allows users to publish content from their home directories. It's commented because although the user directory module may be loaded, it's disabled, and as a result, there is no need to have this directory block loaded into the server's memory. But if you do decide to support user directories, then uncomment this entire block, as it will apply the rules that you see here to the user's home directory. Allow override for these directives: authconfig, limit, and file info. In the case of authconfig, if a user determines that from their home directory they'd like to place authentication requirements on content, then you'll allow the user to do so using anything auth related. Options that are to be supported in users' home directories include multiple views, indexes, symlinks if it matches the owner, so the links need to match content owned by the owner of the directory. No execution, with some limits that are set on these types of methods, get and post, etc. Now let's keep scrolling through this document. Directory index is another key directive. Here are files that Apache will serve by default without you having to indicate the file name explicitly. For those of you familiar with IIS, Microsoft's IIS, this is equivalent to the document default, or the default document that you configure. So again, if Apache finds index.html or index.html.var, which is a way to determine based on variables such as language, environmental variables such as language, which default document to serve, then it will serve the page without you requesting the page, equivalent to accessing content without indicating the file name. So IP address, hit the web server, no file name. Below we see another directive, access file name. Whenever you see allow override, none, or anything that has to do with override, it's making reference to this file, the hidden htaccess file. Historically, Apache has supported this file as a means for users to place restrictions or directives on content, so to assign directives to content. In particular, in an ISP setting where you share server space with other people, you may not be granted access to the primary httpd.conf file, but you will be in all likelihood provided access to create your own htaccess file with directives that pertain to your website as opposed to someone else's website. This is the name of the file, the default name of the file that you can create with directives. But in the event that an allow override is set to none for a given directory and its subdirectories, then the hidden htaccess file will have no effect. Here's another directive. It's a files directive which pertains to file types. This tells us that the following lines prevent htaccess and htpassword files from being viewed by web clients. In other words, under no circumstances should Apache serve anything, any file with a .ht suffix, or beginning with a .ht, that is, .ht prefix. So at no point should Apache serve .htaccess or .htpassword or .ht anything. Here we see order, allow, deny, but the one rule that overrides everything is deny from all. So if you attempt to access content such as .htaccess, it will not work. And that's something that we can put as a note to test. Test access to .ht star files from webroot or from anywhere that Apache will serve content. But this is the rule that provides the feature to restrict that type of content. So we've seen directives for directory as well as files. You can control access to files and directories. With files, you're generally indicating a file mask, and with directories, you explicitly, or with the directory directive, you explicitly indicate the directory, although wildcards are supported. To find out types of files, Apache can consult the mime.types file, which has multiple types defined, and that's less etc mime .types, you'll find the various types, PDF, AVI, shockwave, you name it, it's all in here with suffixes associated with them, and Apache can make use of this file to determine what type to send a user. However, outside of mime.types, the default type for HTML content, which includes dynamically created content from files like PHP, ASP, Python, Perl, etc., is text plain or plain text. If the MIME magic module is loaded, then the file conf magic is loaded. Conf is relative to etc httpd, which is indicated by the server root directive, and the magic file we showed you is in that directory. So if indeed mod-mime magic is loaded, this file will be used to help determine file types and serve the appropriate MIME type to the client. Hostname lookups, this is a bad idea. It causes Apache to look up on a per connected host basis the hostname of the connecting user. It wastes resources and can render your web server as slow as molasses. Send file and mmap, those are turned off. They're usually not required. Error log. Again, we mentioned that the symlink logs, which is referenced via the server root, which is in etc httpd, gets created when you start the server. A file named error_log will be the default error log file. And it is the file for the default server as well as for any virtual host that doesn't have an error log defined. So E will just indicate default error log file for all hosts, which means for the default server as well as for virtual hosts. Unless, of course, you override it by indicating the name of an error log file. Apache supports the levels supported by syslog, debug through emergency, those 8 levels, or 0 through 7. The default level is 1. However, you can reduce the verbosity to notice info or lower if you'd like to see more information. This information gets logged to the error log file, not to the general access log file. Let's keep on going. We're moving on to the log format. Apache uses variables or constructs its logging based on variables. The variables all have meaning, such as the host, the connection, so on and so forth, and Apache has a directive which can aggregate those variables and assign them to a name which can be referenced in the main server config or by any virtual host, since virtual host files are included in the main configuration. So here we see a log format with many variables, and it's referenced or named combined. So whenever you make a reference to combine with respect to logging, you're going to get the results of all of these variables. Common has most of the variables found in combined, minus the refer, so in other words, who sent me here, as well as the user agent, in other words, the type of the browser connecting to the server. There are types for refer and agent. If you want to log connecting clients based on refer or user agent alone for the sake of parsing that information and generating reports, then you can cross-reference refer or agent and or agent. Or you can get all the information and post-process using a separate utility. Also, logging in Apache can happen simultaneously, so you can have a virtual host or the main server log using combined to one file as well as using, let's say, refer or agent. You generally wouldn't log using combined and common because combined includes everything included in common plus refer and user agent. But you may want to log combined or common coupled with maybe refer and agent just to split the data out. The general recommendation is that you log using combined and then post-process the information using a tool such as Webalizer. In other words, leave Apache's resources to serving clients as opposed to writing I/O to disk, and it'll be much more effective as a result. And when we fire the server up, we'll see that each of these items, when we allocate, let's say, combined, for example, such as the connecting host, the time, the number of bytes transferred, the size, the refer, are lined up in the log file exactly how they're presented here in the log format area. Here we see another format which uses the mod log IO to present to us combined IO, which, as it tells us, accounts for actual bytes received and sent using uppercase I and O for input-output. It's disabled, but can be turned on if you need that sort of view. And here we see a reference to custom log common, which is commented out. But below we see one that isn't, custom log with combine turned on, which means the refer and user agent variables are made available. So this access log file is the default log file for the default server. Let's just note that.